It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. This is Patty Richards, the chair of the Vermont Community Broadband Board. I'm convening our regular meeting at 12:02. Board members that are present are Brian Otley, Sarah Hoffman, and Patty Richards. We're expecting Dan Nelson and Laura Sibilia. Okay, Dan's arrived. Thank you, Dan. Welcome. Laura we are expecting Laura as well. We have 4 board members currently in attendance. Christine, you want to do the roll call of staff?
Yes, we have Brittany Watson, Rob Fish, Christina Sweet, Lucy Fortier, Ginny Raboyne, Alyssa Matthews, J.B. Ledoux, Tony Clitheroe, and I'll introduce Eugene Lee in a moment.
Okay, great. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. Our first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda so we can take action. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'm going to give that to Sarah. I think you all said yes. Sarah seconded. Any discussion or changes for the agenda?
Yeah, we'd like to move the DE update and outreach up because Brittany has a personal issue that came up at 2:30. So if we could do that ahead of time, maybe as item 5 and bump everything else down, that would work.
Okay, so let's make the DEI update, which is currently item 8. Let's make that 4.1.
Okay.
So we'll do introduction of new staff and then we'll do the DE.
Yep.
Does that work? Okay. Any other changes? All right, let's take action. All those in favor of the agenda as modified, please say aye.
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 Aye, great. Any opposed? The ayes carry 4-0. Let's now move to the minutes of January 18th, 2024, not January, November 18th of 2024. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes in our packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? I had a couple of changes to the minutes. There's 3 locations in the minutes that reference Alexi. And as we know, he was not able to make the meeting. So I'd like all of those removed, those references to Alexi being, it reads as if he was fielding the discussion. So if we can remove those references, that would be terrific. Is there anything else in the minutes? All right, hearing none, let's, all those in favor of approving the minutes as modified with a change of staff that was absent, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes carry 4-0. All right, the minutes are approved. Let's now move to item 3, which is public comment.
Yep, for public comment, please raise your hand if you'd like to make a statement. You'll be given 3 minutes and we'll pick the order as you've raised your hand. So anybody wanting to make public comment at this moment, please raise your hand. Okay, I am not seeing any hands come up. Laura has just joined the meeting.
Excellent. Let's let the minutes reflect that Laura joined at 12:06. Welcome, Laura. You're on
Okay,
mute, Laura, from speaking.
I said hello.
Right. Okay. All right. Public comment is closed. We do have public comment at the end. So if anybody does want to make a comment later on, we do have an opportunity to do that later. Let's now move to item 4, which is the introduction of new staff. Christine?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Eugene Lee to the board. Eugene is our data analyst, and she's had quite a bit of experience in that. We're very happy she joined staff. Eugene, if you could do a little introduction, talk about a little bit about your background and what you're going to be doing.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yuzhi Li. I'm so excited to join VCBB as a digital equity data and research analyst. I have a background in data science and engineering, and over the past 6 years, I've applied data-driven solutions across various sectors. After earning my PhD from UM in 2018, I spent 3 years as a postdoc research associate at Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where I focused on combining experimental data and the numerical simulation to predict the degradation of irradiated concrete in the biological shells of nuclear power plants to support the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, for reviewing in their operation license of U.S. commercial nuclear power plants. Following that, I work as a data scientist and a healthcare startup. Using like statistical methods and machine learning model to predict the disease and provide insights for patient treatment. The work I will mainly focus at ACBB will be use the data analysis method to support the policy development and the support the VCBB's mission. I'm very eager to leverage my expertise to support VCBB's mission of bridging broadband gaps and enhance digital equity for all Vermonters. Thank you. I'm looking forward to work with all of you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Yuzhi. Wow, what a resume. Holy cow, I'm impressed.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, we are blessed to have you, given that that lineup of your background and your education. That's tremendous. It's good to know we have a nuclear scientist on board, and if we have any reactors we need attention, we're going to go to you first. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Looking forward to having you work with the data and helping us out.
Yeah, I'm very excited about these new opportunities because digital equity is totally new, brand new for me. It's like a new area I can explore. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. We are excited too. Excellent. Okay, let's now move to our new item, which follows staff introductions, which is the old 8, the digital equity update and outreach ideas.
Yep, okay, take it away, Brittany.
Hold on, sorry. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and you all can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So, hello everyone. So to give context to the presentation today, we held a press conference on November 21st to announce that Vermont received approximately $5.3 million to implement Vermont's digital equity plan. So we invited 3 Vermonters with lived experience on the digital divide to share what digital access means to them. And during the conference, we were asked by one of the participants how we will get the word out to people that need these funds and services. And this really proved very timely because we are implementing the digital equity plan. Our kickoff is in January. And so we're really excited to just be able to dive in and share with the board our efforts and how we're approaching outreach today. So our approach to achieve digital inclusion is to ensure every individual in Vermont, regardless of identity, community, or economic challenges, has high quality, accessible, affordable technology resources. So we've identified 5 programs and initiatives to implement over the next 5 years to increase access to technology resources. So in year 1, which is our current year, we're focusing on research and outreach. So we acknowledged in our digital equity plan that in developing the plan, we encountered limitations in the quantitative data available to understand the baseline of digital inequities at the state level. So we also don't have a centralized function yet to collect and analyze data on digital inclusion for different subsets of Vermont's demographics. So this year we'll be focusing on establishing the partnerships and the capacity necessary for data collection, tracking, and analysis. I'm sorry. And so we've decided to hire a research contractor, a data and research analyst, CUG, and we're partnering with a local university. So UG just introduced herself. She's our new staff who'll lead all of our data and research efforts for digital equity. We're collaborating with UVM as well to conduct research on the incarcerated population in Vermont, and which is one of the 8 covered populations. And we are in process of hiring a research contractor to assist with data gathering and research on the other 7 covered populations. We completed demos today for a research contractor, and we hope to identify a successful candidate and begin next steps in the process this week. So we're feeling really confident right now in the decisions to expand our capacity to address the current data limitations, as well as setting the proper benchmarks and systems for monitoring and evaluation of our efforts. So in year 2, we'll be launching 3 programs: a capacity building subgrant program, a device program, and a digital navigator program. In year 3, we'll focus on expanding our existing workforce development program to include specific initiatives to increase digital inclusion. Year 4, we're going to focus on evaluation and sustainability planning. And year 5, we're going to focus on transitioning out of completing work for VCBB. So the VCB began engaging stakeholders as part of our efforts in drafting the digital equity plan. So we continue to establish partnerships to support our efforts to turn our vision into action. So the programs we'll implement will require varying levels of collaboration to achieve best and sustainable outcomes. So we'll work with community leaders and lived experts in Vermont, as well as the varying organizations, like community-based organizations, local institutions of higher learning, any agencies we're working with through our workforce development programming, and private sector communities. So our engagement tools and strategies were developed using several resources: Emergent Strategies by Adrienne Marie Brown, Modern Day Strategies for Community Engagement by Makara Rumley, Connecting People to Power report on community engagement completed by Center for Whole Communities, Rights and Democracy in Vermont Law School for the Agency of Natural Resources, and peer learning and sharing with other states. So we'll host press conferences, press releases, and pitch stories to receive coverage for our work to reach the state. The importance here is to really build and maintain momentum. We'll use an email and social media campaigns to build awareness and education of digital access and opportunity. So this will look like posting on our social media, emailing partners with a request to share the communications with their networks, with an intent really to share our message as widely as possible in different methods that can make it accessible. So our focus at the VCBB is to ensure meaningful engagement, building trust and rapport with Vermont communities, and utilizing the power of story in our work. So to me, there's no better way to capture the needs of Vermonters than to hear directly from them. So we'll be hosting community events that will include focus groups, joining existing meetings, hosting joint sessions with trusted organizations, and just getting out there and attending events to better be able to interact with the community. We held listening sessions during the planning phase of drafting the digital equity plan, and those were held monthly. We saw some success with that, and we're going to continue that practice following the launch of the implementation phase next month. And I'll be hosting monthly listening sessions. We'll also hold quarterly sessions to exchange information, results, and impact for digital equity related work and efforts. Oftentimes those will be like a joint meeting with our digital equity core team. And lastly, we'll use our website as an information hub for members of the public to have access to important documents, find information on upcoming events, and provide ways for members of the public to contact us and share input. Thank you.
Christine, was that the end of the presentation?
Yeah, any questions? Sorry, if
Okay,
anybody's
thank
got any
you.
questions, please.
Thank you, Brittany, for that. That was very well done. And just to let the board and the rest of the folks that are on the call today know, I was at the press conference as well. And the gentleman that brought up that question relative to basically how are we going to get the word out to these covered populations? That was the essence of his question, which was like rock star question, in my opinion. Because how we get the word out really matters. And we have to reach that group of covered population folks in their space, not ours. So part of the presentation today was to talk about that challenge of, how do we reach this group? So we've got a little over $5 million of grant dollars directed to us for this initiative to help covered populations, and how we get the word out is really, really important. So that's the framing of this issue. Any questions from board members? Comments? Sarah?
Thanks, Patty, and thanks, Brittany. So, the social media stuff all makes sense to me, but we're talking about people who don't have access, in our website and all those kind of things. Will there be any kind of print? I'm trying to figure out how to reach the people who actually
Right.
don't use the internet.
Right.
So thoughts on that?
So with print, we're thinking about especially focusing on the media outreach and hoping to gain some coverage around our efforts with that. Being in the community events, part of that, those efforts will have like outreach that will be like printed materials. And in those community events, like Sarah, to your point, what we could also do is we have these summary documents, particularly of the digital equity plan. We have a digital equity summary that's on our website that we can commit to making copies and bringing to where we have events. And then that's just a way also for people to be able to take the information with them and to be able to review it and have it on hand. We haven't, I have heard other states that have talked about snail mail campaigns where they've sent out printed materials. I haven't had a conversation with a state that's done that has found it very successful. And I think that's where my thoughts and our approach would really be to leverage our existing like relationships and building those partnerships. And so then when we are partnering with local organizations throughout the state, they're able to assist in sharing messages as well. And that can include printed copies. We have had conversations with the libraries that have also shared that they'd be open to like posting our documents or flyers in the libraries as well. And so, yeah, thanks for that question.
Yeah, Brittany, thank you for that response. I have similar questions in terms of how we get the word out. And somehow we've got to reach the people where they are at, on their turf, so to speak. And word of mouth is going to be huge. So, however, and Heron may be able to help navigate this discussion as well. The printed materials, digital equity means something to us for these covered populations. That's like, what, it doesn't mean those words don't resonate. So the selection of our words, meeting the covered populations in their space. That is the challenge for all of you and on the staff here to figure out how we bring that message and really to drum up that word of mouth, because we want to make sure these grant dollars are deployed and deployed successfully to the covered populations. It's a big challenge you have. Any other board members, comments or questions? All right, hearing none. I assume, Brittany, you will do updates periodically on how things are going and successes and things that may have worked well and not so well. I'd love to keep hearing about how things are going.
Yes, for sure. And we hope to, in a future board meeting, also be able to present on our timeline and how we'll be beginning the implementation phase. So, and there are going to be various members on our team that are going to be holding pieces of this work. So it's really exciting. So it's a lot of work, a lot to do, and we're really excited to serve Vermont. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, let's move to item 5 on our agenda, which is the KPI monthly update. Tee us up, Christine.
Yeah, this is our regular verbal update. You know, we officially quarterly present the metrics, but we've also agreed to meet with the grantees monthly and get updates from them, which has been very helpful. But at this update, we'd like to invite a couple of CUDs into executive session as well. And we've got some names to include. So Tony, you want to take the lead on wording us going into executive session?
Yes, so pursuant to the Confidential Business Records, Public Records Act exemption and the Open Meetings Law exemption for information that falls within the Public Records Act, we are we're requesting that the board move into executive session to get the KPI update.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we move into executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A6, which protects records exempt from the access to the public records law, specifically 1 VSA section 317C9, which deals with confidential business records or information. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With the ayes carry 5-0 to move into executive session, so we'll sit tight, and Christine, staff will
Yep.
migrate the folks over in terms of who should be there. Would be all board members and those folks that you've identified.
Yep, Ginny has the list and will be moving us over shortly. Go ahead, Ginny.
Okay.
I'm doing it now. Thank you.
Looks like we're all starting to come on. It's quite a process to tee everybody up, move them over. I think this is the hardest part of the meeting, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
Patty, did you join on your phone?
Yes, I'm on the phone. I'm on P. Richards 213.
Okay, let me see if I can get you over there then. Hang on one second.
Okay. Jenny, I'm still in public session if you're still online.
Yes, I am still online.
Okay.
It looks like you are assigned. I'm not sure why you're not going.
Okay.
I'm going to take you out and put you back in.
Okay. There's still no movement on this end.
Same with me, Patty. This is Stephen John and DB
Nice, Steve.
Fiber.
Yeah, we will
Stephen, go.
invite as needed the rest of the participants.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's try this again, Patty. Hopefully you'll
Okay.
go.
All right, and you'll see me go, right, Jenny?
I will, yeah.
Okay. It's weird. It's not moving. That's strange because it usually pops right over.
It is very strange. I think
Hi,
Karen and
Patty.
I
I'm gonna
both
figure
have
out what
tried.
address you're under may be the issue. So let me try to
Okay.
do this. And
Okay.
actually, I don't know if I have I'm gonna temporarily, Jenny, take over managing the room.
Okay.
You'll have to just take it back, okay?
So Rob, it's the email address is my home email because I'm using my iPhone to join. It's P. Richards.
Got it. Okay. So let me see if I
Which I
can.
think, Rob, she is on the list. I think you'll see.
Yeah, I saw that over there. I just didn't ask to join. Do you see anything in the top of the screen? So actually, oh, there's two different ones here. There's the P. Richards. Let me see if I can just make sure everything's assigned. Sorry. I think you're signed. Oh, it's saying this person can't access breakout rooms, which is brand new news to me.
Oh, we had that
So my
problem.
computer updated to Windows 11, and there's been lots of wonky things this morning.
Oh, interesting.
That's strange that you can't access it via.
We
Can we call you? I guess we could see if we could call you in. Is there's no way to log in with your personal email?
So this is my personal email.
Oh, so it is the P. Okay,
It's
let
P.
me.
Richards 213.
Okay, perfect. We may be able to do this. It says that you should be in the room. I'm just going to unassign you and then reassign you and see if that brings
Okay.
you over.
Okay.
So I'll save that.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a software update yesterday.
It might be better to use the Teams app on the iPhone.
That is correct. It has helped me
Okay, I'm assigning
in the
you.
future.
I think that's what I'm using though, the Teams app, but
We're moving people back to the main meeting. Okay, everybody's coming back to the main meeting. I don't know. Okay, I guess I may have closed the meeting and then I will did not mean to do that. I meant to just assign the participants, but if we reopen it, it should move you over. If not, Patty, on the upper top there, you'll see where it says rooms and you'll click on that and it should have an option to join, but I'm just going to reopen it and hopefully it'll bring you automatically.
I don't have my menu bar is on the bottom.
Is there anything that says rooms?
No. I've got three. I'm clicking the dots, people's views. No, that's not it.
No, it's not. It would
I
be
don't have
rooms. I'm going to ask you to join and you're not receiving any message.
Nope. There's a message that pops up on the screen.
Can she disconnect from here and go directly into that room if you invite her directly into the room, Rob?
I don't know if there's a way to do it directly from the room. We can try, Patty, if you wouldn't mind, please try logging off and logging back in.
Okay.
And we'll see if that helps for some reason.
Okay.
If it's
Right,
such a
I'm gonna
good
log
run
off.
of no tech problems.
Yeah, right, I'm gonna log off.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. I was thinking it was me for a minute.
No, I think this is complicated. Before that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rob, if she's dialing into the phone number, I don't think that Teams
Teams doesn't
supports
support that.
putting her in. I think she has to use the Teams app.
Yeah, no, she is logging in that way because she's doing video, but I'm not sure what's happening, but thank you, FX.
Here she go.
Okay, I'm back then.
Okay. But you're in this meeting still. Conference room. Whoa. Hello, conference room, Tesla. Uh, let me switch back over. We may have to figure out another way to do this. I'm not really sure, Patty, what's happening. The software can be strange.
That's weird.
But it certainly has nothing to do with you. I don't know why nothing's appearing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I can do on my end.
Yeah, because you are assigned to the correct room. I'm just not sure why you're not seeing a notice to move into that room.
Hey, what I can do, I could sign off by my iPhone and I can come in on my laptop, but I have no camera.
That's better than where we're at now.
Okay.
We
All right,
all
let
know
me-
your voice, Patty.
I don't know, that's good or
Okay.
bad, but okay, let me do that. Just give me a second. I'm gonna drop off here.
Okay. I don't know why. Patty, are you back on?
Just let us know when we're all back in and we'll go back on the record. Public portion.
I think that we are all back.
Okay, we are back to the public portion of the Vermont Community Broadband Board's meeting. We've been in executive session to talk about some KPI information for our CUDs. And we are now back in public session. No action was taken in executive session. The only report that I will make is that we are planning to hold a special meeting on December 20th for one of the CUDs. The bulk of the material will be for that meeting in executive session because it's dealing with proprietary information, but there will be a special meeting on December 20th at 10 o'clock. No other action was taken. All right, we are now on to item 6, which is the new mapping interface and dashboard presentation.
Yep, I will turn this over to Alyssa Matthews, who will involve Stone. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I am going to pass it pretty quickly right over to Stone, but again, this is some data work that we've been talking about for a while now, since we have been working with the FCC's new national broadband fabric, since Vermont uses E911 site locations for all of our broadband status data up until this point. And so we're excited to kind of show you a little bit of the behind the scenes and some reasoning of why we created our own Vermont fabric and how that's going to help us moving forward. So I'll pass it over to Stone.
Hi, my name is Nick Flourish. I'm the project manager at Stone. I think some of you have seen me before, but the presentation will be delivered by Mary from our team and Christina, who's also in the conference room with her. So I just will pass it over to Mary and let her take it away.
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, let me quickly share my screen here. Alrighty. So you can all see that. So thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, everybody, for having Stone join today. So as Alyssa mentioned, we're going to talk about the Vermont location fabric. So this is work that Stone has been doing with the VCBB to try and essentially come up with the fabric of locations that are truly representative of every address in Vermont from all of the different data sources that we kind of have to work with. So just as a quick little background, I'm sure we're all familiar with how quote unquote challenging our data is, right? So Vermont typically, with all of our broadband mapping, tends to rely on the Vermont E911 data set. We know that these are locations that are true to our community addresses. E-sites are, they're based off of emergency responder locations. So you can often have multiple E-sites associated to a single building footprint. However, we are required for a lot of our grant programs to report with the FCC broadband fabric data. And so that's a separate data set maintained by the feds. Often less accurate, as we've run into in our time working with it, but we're required to use it, and it's important that we understand it and are able to work with it. And so the key thing with the FCC data is that they only have a single geographic point that represents a building footprint. So again, kind of the Venn diagram you're seeing on the screen here, sort of illustrates that we're essentially starting with two separate data sets that we have to somehow come together and be able to align for the different needs. So what Stone ended up doing was developing a 20-step matching process that essentially aligns the Vermont E911 data and the federal locations data set to the best of our ability. And so this matched data set is the core data of the Vermont location fabric, which is what we're going to kind of get into today. So again, like the ultimate purpose is we recognize that Vermont works with a lot of different data sets. So how do we create something that's going to best represent all of the addresses that require broadband service and kind of attention when it comes to this work? So essentially what I just described, right, that Venn diagram of the FCC data and the E911 data, that's what we're seeing here down at kind of this level 1 of getting to the Vermont location fabric. So we have, you know, recognizing that we obviously want to try to align and match as many e-sites to FCC locations as possible as we can, but we need to respect that, you know, there might be FCC locations that are not represented in the E911 data. And we know that there are E911 locations that are not represented in the federal data set. So, right, so we're creating this core data set. And so this is the data set that went into the BEAD challenge process, right? So essentially it is the data set that was challenged, went through the deduplication process, looking at like the enforceable commitments known to fund build out to these locations. And essentially the first tier is what we've kind of called the post-BEAD challenge eligibility data set, right? So it's that full representation of every location. And you can see, we'll go through some specific examples in just a few minutes, but you can see that that's kind of where we're starting at, right? So, sorry about that, hold on. Slide there. So, because we're in kind of BEAD mode at the moment, this is kind of like our first priority is, right? Like we need to get this data set prepared and ready to use for the BEAD process, or for the BEAD pre-proposal and final proposal process. So we have to take into account that, you know, this data set of all the locations represented in the state, we kind of can only work with a small subset when it comes to BEAD, because BEAD only recognizes FCC fabric broadband serviceable locations for funding opportunities. And so we know that this is a problem for our core data set, because where instances of maybe through the matching, we've determined multiple e-site locations are matched to a single FCC location. So think of a condo, think of a multi-dwelling unit, right? Like there could be multiple e-sites for that single building footprint. And we can only represent that location as a single point on the map. So that means we need to figure out, how do we determine which of the matched e-site and FCC locations best represent the actual address, kind of as a single feature. And so what we did through the development of the Vermont location fabric was essentially try and do a prioritization. And so we look at, you know, the highest priority match coming out of kind of the first few steps of the process. We're also looking at occupied e-site site types. So, right, we want to make sure that we're selecting sort of the principal location that's going to best represent an occupied address. And then also taking into account the proximity of an e-site to the FCC location. And again, this is specifically for the instances where we've got multiple e-sites matched to a single FCC location ID, or a FCC location. And so this prioritization step essentially assigns what's called the principal Vermont location, fabric location. And the principal carries the funding status, the service status, to fully represent the attributes of those other matched addresses through for our mapping purposes. And so to go back to the diagram that was shared with you, that's kind of this level 2 you're seeing here. So we're coming out of our Venn diagram of every location. We're essentially saying, okay, now we can assign a VCBB ID to locations where there are instances of multiple e-sites matched to a single location ID. We want to determine what's going to be the best principal assignment for that. So that is this top tier step here. You can see in some of these icons noted on the side here that we're carrying up enforceable commitment assignment. So, right, we don't want to lose that information knowing that one of those e-sites has been a committed or an enforceable commitment. And so essentially we're trying to carry up as many attributes as possible to that single representation on the map for that information there. And so then, because again, we're kind of looking at this through the lens of BEAD, how we get to sort of the BEAD post-challenge eligibility data that I mentioned earlier is we kind of take it a step further up for filtering. We can only work with broadband serviceable locations recognized by the FCC. So in the instances here on the right side of the diagram where we know that there's only a unique e-site representing an address, those aren't going to be included in the BEAD view of the data because the FCC does not recognize those as a broadband serviceable location. So this whole overview here is just to provide you some information to be able to kind of see how we're getting from we know every location is represented to what we need to be able to show for our BEAD program mapping. I'll quickly run through just a couple examples so you can see these like live time. Hopefully it'll help kind of drive home the complexity of this process. But we'll look at a couple examples on a map here. So this example, number 1, we have a unique FCC location with no associated enforceable commitments. So that location, it might be a little hard to see on the screen, is represented by a purple point. We know that this location ID isn't associated to any e-site in the Vermont data set. So therefore, it's going to be assigned a VCBB ID and the principal, and essentially that's what's going to get reported to the BEAD view of the data. This location would appear as an unserved location for the BEAD data. We then have an example, number 2, of kind of what I was describing about the multiple e-sites matching to a single, the same FCC location ID. So we have 3 points on the map here. One e-site is associated with an enforceable commitment. That's one we're seeing here in green. And then we have other e-sites also associated to the same FCC ID that do not have a funding source associated to them. So they haven't been identified with an enforceable commitment. So in order for us to keep moving up kind of that tier to get to our BEAD view, we then have to assign a principal VCBB ID location as one of the non-funded e-sites. So this location here that has the little P, the black dot here, this is our principal location because let's say it's the closest, it meets all of our criteria for that prioritization step. We obviously don't want to lose the enforceable commitment funding associated to one of those matched points. So we bring this along in the final BEAD view status, which is this like lighter green sort of outline circle here. So this is the point that will appear on the map representative of these 3 locations.
This is Patty jumping in. I might be the slower kid in the room. Can you describe that using plain language instead of enforceable commitment and other
Sure.
phrases of that? I'm not following what you're
Sure.
saying.
So an enforceable commitment is meaning that a grant program for most cases that we're working with, there is some pot of money that is being allotted to that address, whether it is through ARPA, Act 71, whether it's through a different program, RDOF. I don't know the acronym right off the top of my head, but essentially this green address here in the middle, someone has identified that this location has funding available to it, which essentially means it wouldn't
So
get
said more
BEAD funding.
plainly, and I can't see exactly where you're pointing, but there's one green dot in this screen that has some grant dollars attached to it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right,
That's
go
this
on
one.
and use plain language for me, please, so that I make sure that I am getting this as the example.
Absolutely. So,
Appreciate it.
yeah, of course. Just to reiterate again, one of the locations here has funding money associated to it for building out broadband. The others do not, but because we have to only assign a single representative point on a map for these addresses for the requirements of the BEAD program, we essentially have to carry up the information associated to all of those locations to the single one represented here.
So there's 3 separate locations in this map, or maybe
Correct.
just 2? Or there's
There's
3
3.
separate locations. Hold on. So there's 3 separate locations,
Yes.
and you're saying they only count as one?
Yes.
Yes, for BEAD, because the FCC, the NTIA requires reporting for a single FCC location. So that's this number you're seeing in the label on the tail end. They're all the same FCC location. We can only provide one record of information for that FCC. So
Can I
how do you
ask the
take 3
basic
and get it to
question
1?
here? All right, can I ask the basic question? How did 3 locations only become 1 in the FCC data set?
That's their process of creating their fabric results in a single point for building footprints. So they have a whole process for that.
And
Yeah,
Patty,
listen,
it's not just building footprints, it's parcel. So that's often
Yeah.
the problem in Vermont is there's only one FCC location per parcel. And you can see from this, it kind of looks like it's probably a multi-generational farm or parcel that was split. You know, they all seem kind of connected. And if we had the parcel over top of it, it looks like it, could be all one parcel, but 3 different residences.
Yeah. This is the challenge that we're trying to work through is right.
So
like how do you take 3 and make it 1?
Yeah,
Right,
but at the end of the day, the punchline here, right, is we only get funding for one source.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Can you zoom in on the green dot, the funded location?
Yes.
So I think, I mean, that's probably a house, but like Alyssa said, it's probably multi-generational. So there's one parcel, we can only, E911 is identifying multiple places that they could send a first responder. But for terms of funding and BEAD, the feds don't care about all the different places on the property that you could send a first responder. So that's part of the challenge of matching up what they've got. And the process that CostQuest, well, the contractor that did the fabric for the FCC went through to generate these the FCC version of the locations that we have to work with is not crystal clear. And
Okay.
yeah.
So if on this parcel there are 3 separate houses, 3 separate families, it counts as one because the FCC's mapping identified this as one.
Yes.
Okay. We can't challenge that.
We did the challenge process
We did the
already.
challenge process.
Yeah.
They don't,
Okay.
they won't put more than one location on a parcel. That's kind of how they did it nationally, yeah.
You know, the obvious example is if I have an apartment building with 10 apartments in it, it counts as one.
Yep.
Yep.
As far as they're concerned, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is the most, like, this scenario is like the most complex, obviously. It's very confusing to try and, like, you know, we know that there are more than one buildings on here. But that's the problem essentially we're trying to get down to, is we need to get that kind of single representation. And yeah, this is probably the most complex example of that that we're going to see from a sort of structure wise. And so just moving on to a couple more examples, right? So in the last 2, we specifically were talking about addresses that had been matched to the FCC data, right? Like through the 20-step matching process, we determined that, yep, the FCC has something in their data set that we think aligns best with the E911 points. Now we're going to look at a couple examples where we're looking at locations that are only recognized in the Vermont E911 fabric data set. So in this example here, we have a unique e-site, and it's highlighted in green because there is a enforceable commitment or funding dollars available to that location. This location is obviously, it's a unique e-site, so it's assigned the principal location and is the displayed location that would appear on the map. This location would not appear in the BEAD data set because it's not considered an NTIA approved BSL.
Let me just interject here. Let's explain what an enforceable commitment is. So an enforceable commitment means there's, for example, RDOF EACAM funds are already committed to that address. And you can't put multiple federal programs on an address. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
So in going through, in preparing all the data during the challenge process, we had to determine if there was multiple sources of funding coming at any particular location and go through deduplicating it, which means identifying only one source of funding, basically. So that's all part of the enforceable commitment process. But ultimately, we know who's funded and who's not.
Exactly. So yes, so in this example, this point that we're seeing would not again appear associated to the BEAD view of the data. And then the final example is, again, we're talking about specific e-sites. So in this example, you're seeing 2 gray points on the map here for these 2 buildings. So these are both the same situation. It's a unique e-site with no associated enforceable commitment or funding dollars that we've determined are associated to that address. So these locations are each assigned their own unique principal location and will be the displayed point on the map. These locations would not appear on the BEAD data because they're not considered NTIA approved BSL for the FCC fabric. So again, similar scenario. This is just showing that these locations do not have committed funding dollars known to serve them. So they would need to be served by some other form of funding that's not BEAD. That's, it could be something else. So this is just to try and give you sort of like again, very specific examples of kind of how we're getting to this fabric, right? Like what this fabric is going to actually represent for Vermont. and our broadband reporting information. And so
Just a moment, pause here. Can you explain why to the board why that would, we have two E911 locations, but you just said they're not considered an NTIA approved BSL in the FCC framework. Why would that be?
The FCC might not have data associated to those locations. Again, through how the FCC has created their location fabric, they've gone through different avenues of accessing parcel data or post, right? Like the US Postal Service data. And with Vermont, we know that we get down to a pretty granular detail with our E911 data set. Towns are updating this on an ideally regular basis, right? They're submitting address data to the E911 board to have that be as updated and, you know, current as possible for emergency responders. But with the FCC, their processes just determined that these locations did not exist. So yeah, it's pretty wild. So that's again where we're trying to find the best balance of actually representing Vermont addresses on the map.
And we really wanted to see all the addresses that there are that we care about as Vermonters, so that when we look at a map, and Mary's about to show you one of the dashboards, and we're working on more, but we want to be able to see those places that the FCC knows about and is throwing money at, and see the ones that are, you know, falling through their cracks effectively, so that we can identify who needs help still.
Right.
Which was really hard to do when we were trying to start with just the FCC data, and it clearly didn't have everything. And then we'd pull in some E911 data, but that matching process wasn't formalized initially, like we've done now. So we weren't getting the whole picture. Now we're getting the whole picture.
So this dashboard here that you're seeing, this is currently up on the VCBB Explore site for folks to look at. But this is the result, that top tier level of the original diagram of the BEAD post-challenge eligibility data. So this map represents point addresses in Vermont that are recognized by the FCC as broadband serviceable locations. And we've pulled through the known enforceable commitment, the funding information associated to addresses. So for the BEAD pre-proposal process, this is the data set that we are moving forward with using. And so you can explore and search for this. We can share the link to that.
If you
but
tap
this
on a
is,
point,
oh,
can
yeah.
you show them what pop-up
Sure.
shows?
Absolutely.
And can you explain the colors, what the colors mean?
Sure. So here up on the right side, we've got a little legend. So anything appearing in green, we've got kind of two shades of green here. Those are considered served or served funded. So that means that they have broadband speeds considered served speed, which I believe is anything greater than 120 megabits per second. The lighter green, served funded, indicates that there are funding dollars associated to that address, and that location will be served with that money. And so those are kind of the green represented on the map. And so you can see we have this is currently filtered to the extent that I have displayed right now, but you can see they make up a large portion of what we're seeing on the map there. You then have the orange, which the two shades of orange, underserved and underserved modified. So these kind of fall into kind of the lower tiers of service. So underserved is greater than 25 3 megabits per second and less than 120 megabits per second. And then finally the red are our unserved locations, meaning that they have less than 25.3 megabits per second for service speeds. So we're trying to identify, you know, for the BEAD program, under the definitions that they require us to consider locations, that, you know, these are what we're seeing as unserved and unserved, underserved and unserved. So this is the information associated to this point here on the map. So we can see it's an e-site that's been matched to a location ID in the FCC fabric. We've given it a Vermont VCBB ID, and we've got a couple other you know, attributes associated. So it's not funded by another funding program, and there's no known enforceable commitment, again, funding for that location. So this would be a prime example of something that could be funded by BEAD.
Okay, so all the reds, oranges, and yellows are BEAD potential funded.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yep. Yep.
So you can see here,
And
this is the entire state view.
ultimately, just, I mean, to be very clear, the lighter green, the served funded, does not mean that they are currently connected at the speed that they want to be, but they will be eventually.
Yes.
Maybe in 2 years, maybe
Yeah,
next month, like not
and
clear,
Mary-
and we're working on that.
Mary, do you want to zoom in to one of the, like, click on one of the light green so they can
Served
see?
funded. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this,
So, yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, there you go. Exactly kind of what we're seeing in this pop-up here. So again, we can see the e-site, the FCC it's associated to, but this is been recognized for EACAM funding source. So therefore it's receiving the served funded status. Again, it might not have service, but the probable enforceable commitment date for that to have this location to have service is 2028. For the EACAM grant program. So that's kind of an example of what you're seeing there for a served funded address. All right, let's see here if I can get to the next. Sorry.
By the way, that map is publicly available on our website under BEAD bidders information.
Yes.
For those other folks on the call.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can post the link to that so people can explore if they're interested in. So next steps, working with the data, right? This presentation had a little bit more of a BEAD focus, right? Because again, we're kind of in the BEAD mode at the moment. But the Vermont location fabric represents the latest information available for Vermont addresses. And this includes the service status. So again, served, underserved, unserved, and funding sources as they're updated from the respective sources. So as E911 updates, as the FCC data updates, as our known enforceable commitment, grant funding information updates, we should be able to see that within the Vermont location fabric. And I posted here on the right side, this is just an image of what we've now dubbed the historical Vermont broadband status dashboard. So this is what we originally were using before we were required to use the FCC fabric within this reporting realm. This is all based off of PSD submitted data. So this was how, again, we were kind of tracking service status, you know, known enforceable commitment, known funding dollars. So the Vermont location fabric is kind of the next step away from sort of how we were originally working with this data. So as Nick mentioned, we're currently working on incorporating the Vermont location fabric into the Act 71 funding program reporting process, and being able to have a dashboard similar to the one we just looked at, hooked up for that. And overall, wider use of this Vermont fabric in our mapping efforts is going to give us a more cohesive understanding of the state's broadband funding landscape as build out progress occurs. So that that is kind of the goal, is trying to, as Nick put it, find those locations that are either slipping through the cracks with these funding programs to best represent Vermont's needs.
Yep, that's fantastic, Mary. I want to note too that because of all the work that we've done and the formality and the definition that we've put into both the 20-step matching process and then how we combine layers to show just the bead view or maybe just at some point an Act 71 view or whatever we need. We're going to be updating the public web content to have documentation like what is that 20-step process, because when the PSD had done their own matching long ago of E911 to the first releases of the fabric, there wasn't a whole lot of transparency, and it worked as a product, but we want to be able to provide the product and the transparency so that people can better understand what they're actually looking at and working with. So that'll be another outcome of having done this and prepared it.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Would it be, is the intent to use this data for the general public to figure out, like, is there a plan to bring high-speed internet to their road, for example? Is that a use of this data?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
At some
What other uses? For the CUDs, for the bidders for BEAD? I'm just trying to think of what other,
the federal reporting, the quarterly federal reporting, it has to be done for the non-BEAD grant funding.
Yep, and it will also be how we determine if there are any remaining E911 addresses after BEAD has been allocated that are not associated with a funding program.
Got it. So those who have completely fallen through the cracks.
Yeah.
We're also using it to, we're updating the long drop data and trying to so that we have the most accurate estimate of cost to serve the high cost locations as well. And the Vermont fabric is on its own not something that is as useful as it's kind of a step before we get to showing it in these different forms for these different purposes. So the bead view is one, but we will probably be using it for other things, like when we're working with Alyssa and Brittany on digital equity things as well. And so it'll be tied into everything, and it'll be that, as Mary said, cohesive across all the different places that it's being used.
Thank you. Are there other questions of the board?
I did see Eric Townsend was in here earlier and he had a question.
So Eric is not a board member.
That's true.
So we're
Okay.
going to reserve it to board members so that we maintain control of the meeting. Board members, or if a staff person has something to contribute, I'll allow that. See any hands up of board members? If you have a question, jump in for board members because I can't see everybody on my screen.
Yeah, I don't see any hands up.
Okay. Christine, do you have anything you want to wrap up with this, or?
No, I think I did a good job of the presentation. You can see how complex all this is and all the work we're doing to make sure we don't miss any address.
Yeah, this is, and thank you for bearing with me and going through some basic terminology.
No, of course.
Yeah, it was very helpful for you to describe it in just general layperson terms, and I really appreciate the patience of going through this. This is fabulous and great information. Job well done.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's it's quite the complex process, and we live in this world pretty regularly. So it's good to have checks on making sure that we're coming across clear to the people that need to know and understand it. So yeah, I'll post a couple links in the chat so you have access to that for your records. But yeah, feel free to reach out to Stone. Obviously, Alyssa is you know, a good conduit to get to us, but we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thank you. Well done.
Okay, yeah, that was excellent. Okay, let's move on to item 7, which is the annual report draft.
Yep, and Heron will take this away. Go ahead, Heron.
Okay, hello everyone. I have a brief slide to share here. Hopefully it will load. Sometimes my connection's not the best. I did want to point out the report is in your packet. So the full draft annual report was included in the board packet. This is just an outline of what's included. I went over these sections at your last meeting, but wanted to put it up today for reference and then to open it up for questions for me and or the team, recognizing the report is a group effort. So does anyone have any questions for us?
Karen, my only question, I read through the whole report, job well done, lots of information contained in here. My only request is on the description of the board of directors, if you could include something on each board member versus, I think you called out 2 or 3 situations, and it would be helpful to just characterize the whole group as to, you know, you called out, I'm trying to think what page it's on. Bear with me while I get there. But just some more flesh on the bones for that piece. I'll let you wordsmith it. It called out Dan Nelson being the vice president and Sarah taking over for Holly. If you could add Laura, Brian, and myself in there, just get some reference for all 5 of us.
Well, you're all listed. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right. Oh, I see. Okay. And which was that in the executive summary section, or I have a list of
it's actually
members.
inside. I'm trying to find the page.
I do have a list of the members in the about the VCBB section, but if you would like, I could
body, yeah, in the
Okay.
body of the document, you call out changes to the board. But if it just to flesh that out in.
Okay.
That's the only comment that I have.
Okay, and would you want some bio information in there, or just
No,
to say?
just reference, like, you know, Patty Richards is the chair.
Okay.
Dan Nelson was reappointed as vice chair. Brian is on with a term of, just reference each one of us. I'm not asking for anything like elaborate, just that way everyone is accounted for in that, in the body of the report.
Okay. I can definitely make that change.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, Sarah has her hand up.
Thanks very much. I thought the report was great. It brought me up to date. This was so exciting. I loved reading it. So that was wonderful. I do have a question in the executive summary where it says the program. It's talking about some of the BEAD program. The program will enable reliable broadband connections to be provided to occupied off-grid addresses as well. Do we have any sense of how large that population is? I would guess that's something people might want to know.
I think we have an estimate. Maybe I don't know. Stone probably knows that better. But Alyssa, do you know offhand what that number is estimated to be? We can find out. I know we've got that.
If you don't know, maybe you don't know. I was reading it and thinking, I wonder how many there are of those. And
I feel
really
like, no, I think we do know. I just don't remember where we knew it from, but I think we're all thinking that we've seen that number, right, Christine?
Yeah. So we'll include something in there referring to that. If you raise the question, then it's worthy of mention.
Okay,
Aaron,
that
I
was
found,
my only question.
thank you, Sarah. Aaron, I found the reference
Okay,
that I'd like you to put some more flesh on. It's on in the PDF packet, page 16 of the PDF board packet.
okay,
And you go through and talk about CV fiber, then NEK CV, and then it jumps to the board. It
okay,
says the board elected Dan Nelson to perform duties of vice chair.
okay.
It's, again, check out PDF page 16. I would
will
add
look
a heading in there that says Board
Okay.
of Directors and just flesh out, like I said, just add reference to to Laura, to Brian and myself. And I think that captures everybody.
Okay, sorry about that. Some of this
No
was,
worries.
like I said, a team effort. So we had different people
Mhm.
writing different bits and kind of gluing it all together. So there could be a little bit of inconsistency there. So that definitely makes sense, and I can add
Yeah,
that.
no worries, no worries. It's you get more eyes on it, you're gonna get suggestions. It's just, that's the nature of the beast.
That's
It looks
great.
really, it looks
Great.
great.
Okay, well, yeah, that we wanted to bring it early, so that we'd have time. It needs to be submitted by January 15th. And we have a resolution to approve it, but you've given me a couple changes, so I can go ahead and make those changes and bring it back. If we have the special meeting, we could do it then and maybe get it approved and still get it in early if that works for everyone.
Or if you do the resolution with the caveat, we make the changes, would the board be willing to
Oh.
do?
Yeah, so that was the question I wanted to pose. We can approve it in substantially the format as provided, with giving you the flexibility to make the edits, and I don't need to see your edits. I'm gonna trust that you're gonna do what we've asked, and I'm fine with that. Do other board members feel okay with that approach?
Yep, thumbs up for Dan.
Yeah,
Excellent.
me too.
Great, Sarah. Laura? Laura, are you there? All right, we got three of us that are good with that, so do you need a resolution?
No, I think that's good enough. We've got 3 out of 5 thumbs up is good.
So rather than act on this resolution, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the annual report filing substantially in the form presented in the board packet with the changes as noted. Staff does not need to come back to the board. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sarah. All those in favor, please say, or let me back up. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry 3-0. I did not hear Laura vote. I believe she has stepped away. Laura, have you stepped away from your phone? I'm gonna take silence as a yes. So 3-0 with with one board member not casting a vote. Okay, and Dan Nelson has left, correct?
Yes, yeah, he left
Okay.
about 1:30.
About 1:30. Okay, great. Let the minutes reflect that too, would be great. Okay, that's the annual report. We've already done the DE update. That moves us to number 9, which is the parking lot.
Okay, Jenny, take that away.
Will do. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Christine. So today we're going to be talking about the parking lot, bringing everyone up to speed, reviewing the items that are completed. This number 119 was what we just discussed, the annual report. You'll see that we do have lots of items that are in progress. It hasn't been that long since our last meeting, and staff is working diligently to resolve these tasks. So in January, we're planning to bring forward the proposal for the $8 million, as well as revisions, as well as number 18, 118, which is the revisions and proposal for CUD business plans to be brought to the board in January. So we're planning to do that as well. Number 117 is in progress and will be part of the February quarterly report, as will 116. 115 is just an ongoing task. As business plans are revised, they will be presented to the board as requested. And 114, board terms continues to be on the parking lot, just as a reminder to myself and everyone that we do want to review that in November. The development of the recruitment of funds policy is in progress. So that is going to stay on the parking lot as well as in progress. And then number 113 was completed as the correction to the minutes as requested. And so just as always, if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from board members? Staff questions or comments? Okay, seeing
Nope.
none.
We're good.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much, Ginny. It's very helpful to go through that. Number 10 is the BEAD timeline update.
Yeah, Christine will take this. There hasn't been any changes. Alexi is recovering from surgery. As we talked about last time, he was in a lot of pain. Well, they believe they've located the pain. It's not anything serious, but it is a surgery, and he's recovering from that surgery. I mean, in other words, his health is not threatened.
I hope he is recovering quickly, and our well wishes to Alexia.
Okay, thank you. So I will cover the timeline for Alexi. As you can see, there haven't been any major changes to the timeline since the last meeting. We are now in the pre-proposal window. So that pre-proposal portal opened on December 3rd, and it will close on January 9th at noon. And that means that we are now in the quiet period. And as a reminder, the communications between prospective subrecipients and between prospective subrecipients and the public during the quiet period regarding the specific nature of a prospective subrecipient's participation in BEAD are prohibited. So those within a consortium may communicate. So during this period and in general related to BEAD, VCBB may communicate with grantees on non-BEAD related issues, and we will respond to BEAD related questions via the vcbb.bead@vermont.gov email address and in our trainings and office hours, which we are emailing out to eligible entities and to folks that have said they are interested in getting those updates and on the Vermont BEAD webpage.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, let's keep moving.
Thank you.
I like the reference to the quiet period. It makes me feel like we're at the library. Okay, Vikuda update, that item 11, Rob Vitsky.
Great. We'll make this short. For those of you that recall the last 2 years, this is actually my third December update. And I like to use the December update as a chance to kind of reflect on the progress that has been made this year. It helps me get ready for next year. And this has been a year of incredible progress. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight some of that, that I think the CDs really kind of hit their stride in terms of constructing and turning up customers this year. And we're obviously very excited to see that continue into next year. So just a couple of quick highlights. These you all know this, but it's nice to repeat it. Obviously, at the start of the year, Otter Creek and Lamoille were just starting to think about their grant programs. And as the year completes, Otter Creek is completed and Lamoille has completed phase 1. And obviously, hundreds of people are served in those. In EC Fiber territory, they have connected almost 1,000 new customers with 150 miles of new network constructed, and are continuing obviously in some of their build out projects in their stage 4 project. In Maple, they activated 120 new miles this year, and a few more right before the beginning of the year, and have service in now up to 12 towns, 323 new subscribers. And then last but not least, NEK reported a total number, but they have over 600 miles now across 50 towns and over 1,150 customers online. So just enormous progress. I looked at the, actually, even before Stone did their excellent presentation earlier today, I looked at the numbers on that historical dashboard. And, just to give you a sense of things, 64,000 at the end of 2021 were unserved or underserved. 58, 2000, so about 6,000 accomplished during 2022. Down to 45,310, or another 13,000 in 2023. And then, you heard very clearly from Stone that the remaining unserved, underserved is a bit of a plus minus in terms of some things the FCC may have left out, and some things that that we think are still, that have been served, that they have not quite taken out yet. But if you look at that BEAD dashboard today, it has about 18,900 addresses left to go, or less than a third in that 3 years. So amazing progress. Thank you for your partnership and in your investment. I think the program is working. And, both through the direct investments that VCBB has made, and also through some of the other activity that all this investment has spurred, we are getting there. We are 2/3 of the way through that initial 64,000 addresses. And with a bit of luck, BEAD will be a really important next step in taking this forward. So thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, Rob. I'm muting because I have a barking dog. So that was great. I'm really appreciative of you going through those data sets and the stats. Job well done to all the CUDs. They're doing the hard work. We have hard work to make sure that the grant dollars are being spent, are being allocated and then spent wisely, but they have the harder work to actually deploy and get it done. So kudos to everybody, like big time. Okay, so let's move on to item 12, the last, our public comment, the final public comment of the day. Christine, can you run that?
Sure. Again, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'll recognize you in the order you raised your hand, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Who would like to make a comment? I'm not seeing any hands. I'll give it another few seconds here. Okay, I think we can move on.
Okay, and if you hear some noise in the background, I have 24 Huskies doing a group howl right now.
I can't hear them, so.
Okay, good. It's kind of loud here. Okay, our next item on the agenda is 13, which is confirming our next meeting, which is a regularly scheduled meeting, is January 13th from noon to 4. We had talked about doing that meeting in person, and Alyssa brought up that our next KPI, our quarterly KPI presentation is in February, but I wanted to suggest that we move our in-person meeting to February so we can go through the KPIs together, which is a fairly substantive discussions. And I think that would be really great if we could do that one in person. Laura, I see Brian shaking his head yes. Laura and Sarah, what do you think about that?
I think
in
I
person.
can do it, Patty, but I'm not sure. I'm trying to think when I'm leaving. I'll let Laura speak. I'm still trying to figure out, I'm looking at my calendar.
Okay.
Ironically, in person, Mondays during the session are challenging for me. I'm at my office, so I would be able to attend virtually.
Okay. All right.
I think I could do it, Patty. It's going to be touch and go.
All right.
I definitely could do the January one that we said in person. And I'm going to be a wild woman. Yes, I will commit. Noon to.
All right. Excellent. Let's plan for meeting in person in February then.
Okay.
And Jenny, if you could follow up with Dan Nelson and check with him as well, but with 3 of us, let's plan that we're going to do it in person. And Laura, obviously with the legislative session, you're at the mercy of all the things that you're doing there at the State House. So we'll have you patch in virtually.
Great.
Okay, that brings us to item 14, which is our standard going into executive session. I'm just wondering if we can do that, meaning me. If I can't go over to executive session, I'm going to propose that we not hold the executive session today unless somebody has a burning desire to meet.
Patty, this is Heron, if I could just interrupt for a minute. I did send a meeting invite it should be in your email if you all want to meet. It would be just the board members. I set it up so I'd be there and then I could leave.
Okay, great.
If you want to, it's an option.
All right, let's do that then. We can be brief at the meeting, but let's use that meeting invitation to go in to executive session to deal with personnel matters. All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we move to executive session pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A33, authorizing a public body to hold an executive session to consider personnel matters. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes carry 4-0. All right, we will see you in executive session via the new link that has come out in mail. Thank you. Bye,
Yep,
everyone.
thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, I was just trying to see if it seems like we're still recording it. We should stop it.
I did stop the
Oh,
recording.
it started again.